Welcome to Slayerfest 98. I am not Ian. I'm actually Dayspring.
I'm Ian Carlos Crawford, and today we are joined by the vampire icon. She played Darla on Buffy and Angel. Rita on Dexter has been in many franchises like Saw. Also the iconic Jawbreaker.
Foxy.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Julie. It's so nice to see you and meet you and talk to you.
Hi. It's so good to be here.
I also wanted to tell you, you are one of the chillest people I've booked for this podcast, and I've been doing it for a while. And we met at HellmouthCon, and you were like, just DM me, it's fine. And usually when people say that, I'm like, well, they're probably not going to respond when I DM them. And you did, and it was one of the easiest bookings I've done in a long time.
I'm in my 50s and I've learned that sometimes, listen, I love having agents and managers and having reps, but sometimes you just got to handle it yourself,
Yeah.
It's okay.
Julie, do you want to give us your Buffy/Angel origin story? How you got to be Darla?
My origin story. I think everybody has heard this story. It's really boring. I was one of 1,000 actresses that went in to read for the role of Buffy. And Joss really liked a lot of the choices that I had made as an actor for the character. But the powers that be all decided that I was too old to play Buffy, which was true. I was. I was already out of college. And they really wanted Buffy to be like a sophomore in high school. And it was going to be a big stretch for anybody to believe me as a sophomore in high school, right? Because I was like 21 at the time, 21, 22. So, so then Joss asked if I wanted to play Vampire Girl #1. And I said, sure, why not? Right? My thought process was it's a new network. And I always have the mindset that work begets more work.
Yeah.
So take the opportunity, do the job, and who knows, you could end up on another show or another, like you'll just get more work from it. So so I said, sure, I'll play Vampire Girl #1. So that's how I was cast. Now, obviously, I wasn't too old to play a 400-year-old vampire.
Yes. Well, first of all, it's ludicrous that they thought you would be too old to play a sophomore in high school because, hello, Jawbreaker. You look, hello
But we
there.
were seniors in high school.
Oh,
I
fair
get it.
enough.
Like, listen,
Yeah.
Sarah was perfect. She was absolutely perfect. And I knew Sarah from both Sarah and I had auditioned. We'd screen tested together for the role of Kendall on All My Children back in New York. And
Stop it.
again, Sarah's a good 5-6 years younger than me. So
Yeah.
it makes sense. Like, I get it. Like, I wasn't, honestly, when I was screen testing for All My Children, I didn't want the job because I was like, I don't really want to be on a soap. I mean, it was nothing against the show personally. It's just I was getting ready. I just wanted, I don't know. I just didn't want to be on a soap. Like, I was like, I don't know if this is the
those
It's a
schedules
direction.
different format.
And those
it's
schedules are
great
brutal.
choice.
Yeah.
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 It's tough.
And so I remember watching her screen test because they put you in a green room and you could watch the other person's screen test. And I remember watching her going like, wow, she's fantastic. She's really good. And she had a lot more experience than I did. She had been working since she was like 3 years old, whereas I was still kind of a new actor. So, but yeah, it made sense. Like, I didn't feel, I was too old to play sophomore in high school at that time. I could have played Buffy as a senior, but not as a sophomore.
Fair.
Can I ask a very meticulous question? Because you said that when you went to audition for Buffy, that you had made some choices for the character that Joss really liked. What were those choices, just out of curiosity?
I have no idea. I don't know. Whenever I audition, I try to do this with all auditions, and what we're taught as actors is make a bold, strong choice and like just lean into it. Don't worry about what they want. Just make some strong choices and who knows. So I know that I know specifically with that audition, it was a lot of material. I remember it was a lot of sides, and I had never seen the movie at that point. So, I didn't really, so I just really leaned into like making really strong, bold choices as an actor. And, you know, it worked.
I feel like you have consistently, your resume is bananas, Julie. Like I've been following you since I was younger as well, but like even looking at your IMDb today, I was like, holy shit, these are things that like I didn't realize you were in, like Punisher. You've even done like Marvel stuff. Like you've done everything. What is your like one of your more favorite genres to be in? Like, do you like doing horror? Do you like doing like rom-coms? Like,
Oh, I got in this business because I wanted to be the girl in a rom-com. And I really never got that opportunity. My career actually became much bigger than what I ever expected. When I started in sitcoms, and I loved doing sitcoms. And prior to actually playing Vampire Girl #1, I was thought of as, the ditzy blonde with the silly voice on a sitcom. Like that's kind of, that's all I auditioned for were sitcoms and comedies, and that was it. And no one would ever see me as a dramatic actress. And, it was really Buffy and Angel and then Dexter, which kind of changed the narrative for me. And now no one thinks I'm funny. And I only play very damaged women who, you know what I mean? So, but it's interesting because I remember being a young actor going like, oh, I only want to do comedy. Like and I remember I had an agent who was like, you don't want to be just known as the ditzy blonde with the silly voice on a sitcom. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. I kind of like that. But then things changed, and it was really, it kind of took my career in a whole different way. I think now I would like to stretch more comedy muscles, but those opportunities are few and far between for me. But I do enjoy the dramatic work. Like in the beginning, I found it like a little bit soul crushing. Like it's really hard sometimes, and like you bring home some emotions that you really don't want to bring home, and it can be tough on your soul. But overall, I enjoy it a lot. I enjoy the challenge of it.
yeah, I mean, you even just like hearing this, like your outlook is so like, yeah, I'll do that. Sure. And like, I feel like that's like, is why you have such like a good career. Cause you are like super talented and you're like, yeah, I'll roll with the flow, whatever.
My acting teacher used to joke around that, like, cause, one time he called a bunch of actors from his students, and he was like, listen, I want to do a reading of a play at my house. Would you be interested? And all he said to me was, I want to do and I said, yes, I'll do it. And he's like, he used me as an example in class because he's like, she didn't ask like, what's in it for me? Who's going to be there? Like what, it was just like, no, I want to be a part of this. Like, I want to do it. So I love acting. I love performing, even if it's in somebody's living room and we're just reading a play. To me, that's all part of being an actor. So I've always been that way with auditions, and to the point where sometimes I drive my agents up a wall because they'll be like, we kind of want to go offer only on this. And I'm like, but let me just do it. Let me just, because I get to be an actor then. Like I get to act, and I get to perform the role how I want. I get to direct it. I get to produce it. I do hair and makeup on, what I mean? I get to make all those decisions, and you learn something every time. So my reps have to protect me by saying no sometimes because I'm just like, yes, I love being an actor.
But that's so nice to hear, though. I feel like so many actors, and I understand, like, and you've been in a lot of different genres. I feel like sometimes people can get like exhausted by a genre, right? I feel like, and I do understand that. Like some people are just like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And I love hearing you be like, yeah, I'm down for it. Like whatever it is, whatever.
But it's
I
so evident looking, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's so evident looking at your IMDb and all of your credits that you work really hard, that you really do love being an actor and that you are taking on these roles. It is a vocation for you.
It's a passion. I'm lucky. I get to make money with my passion. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's my passion. And here's the best actor. I have to work very hard at it. My again in college, I mean, listen, I had one teacher tell me I shouldn't even pursue it. And
Pros.
I had to really, really work hard at learning how to act. And I still feel I really have to work hard at it. I'm not Joaquin Phoenix, who is just walking wound, and you can watch him read a telephone book and it's interesting. I'm not that actor. I have to actually really work hard at it. But I love the process of it. I love, I know some actors are like, oh my God, I hate auditioning. And I'm like, I really love it. Like, I love it. I don't like doing it at home anymore. I miss the camaraderie of going into an audition and meet and seeing other actors, seeing your peer group in the waiting room and talking and exchanging stories and laughs, and then going in and meeting the casting director and the producers. Like, I miss all of that, but I still love auditioning itself. It's just, the business, it's changed now. So I have to do it from, my office, and it's just not as much fun.
I've actually heard that from a couple actor
Same.
friends. Yeah, that like even though it's easier in like to do more, they don't love the like isolation of
I
that.
actually don't think it's easier, because I think nowadays, so I was always the girl that could go in the room and hit it out of the park, right?
Yeah.
But now everybody hits it out of the park, because you can do 87 takes for an audition. So now everybody has a great audition. But I still approach my auditions as if I'm going in the room. I mean, I give myself 2-3 takes max. I do all the work I need to do ahead of time. And when I go to record, I gotta hit it out of the park, but that doesn't translate when they're looking at tapes. And God, I remember I auditioned for this, The Whale, with Brendan Fraser, Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And obviously I didn't get the part, but I got very close. But the scene, it was literally, and it was during the pandemic. So I had to have my husband read lines with me, which he's the worst. And it was a 10-page scene. The audition scene was 10 pages. And the journey was like, it was a roller coaster ride. It was up and down, and like anger and tears and some humor. Like, it was all over the place. And I remember when we went to record it, my one dog, Bear, she was still a puppy. And then I had my dog, Bamboo, who was really old. And then I had Sugar. And then I had my husband in the room too. And Bear was attacking me. She was attacking my legs while I was recording. And Bamboo was licking his penis the whole time. And Sugar was just sitting on the bed and just like being so, like, giving me the most judgmental look. And then my husband was like trying to be, and he was like going like, and action. And I was like, dude, like, what are you doing? Can you just say the lines? Don't rustle the paper. And then he would read the stage directions. I'm like, oh my God. So I sent my agents, I was like, just so you know, I did this in 3 takes, but I sent a video of what I was dealing with. I am like, I have a dog attacking me. I have a goofball husband. I have one dog who's incessantly licking his penis. And I have another dog who's just sitting there judging me. Like I think I should get an Oscar for this.
You're like, just give me the nomination now.
You're like, so I'm signing the contract tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Julie, I have to tell you, I'm a benefit auctioneer, and during lockdown, I had to do all of these auctions via Zoom, via whatever platform. And we have a tiny apartment in Manhattan. My dog is humping Simba, his stuffed animal Simba. My husband's like complaining, turning on the TV, and then of course there's a lag, and it just if anyone knows you, they can just see it on your face that you're about to crack, and you're like, I just need to do this recording for like 5 minutes, and that's it.
Yeah, it's, now I hire somebody to read. And my husband's he's not an actor. He has no talent. I tend to give too many notes to him. I can't do this. Okay.
Well, I'm impressed that it didn't end in a divorce with all the reading. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I know you do a lot of like fan stuff. Like, I mean, which talking to you now, it makes sense because you're down for a lot of shit. I feel like Jawbreaker, like I know you've been in a lot of things that have cult followings, but Jawbreaker was such a big deal to like teen me.
Right here too.
And I've been loving that. I feel like it's almost had a resurgence lately. Like I saw y'all did those like live signings and stuff. I don't
know if you know, but on this Friday, we're being honored at the Academy Museum. They're doing a 25th anniversary screening of Jawbreaker. So it'll be me, Rebecca, Judy Greer, and Darren Stein, and Trixie. I don't remember Trixie's last name. Mattel is hosting the panel, and
oh my gosh!
And we're going to be shooting so much fun content while we're there, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Julie, I'll have you know, we've had Trixie on a few times. Trixie's also a big Buffy fan, so you can feel that you're going to impress.
But it's kind of crazy because we did an interview. We all did an interview yesterday for an online publication about the 25th anniversary, and when the movie came out, first of all, it was done by like Columbia TriStar Home Video. They only gave it a three-week release. I mean, it had some pretty bad reviews. And, it like nobody really cared about it. And then it grew into this. I mean, it's much bigger now than it was when it came out.
Yeah.
And it's so rewarding because I thought it was a really good movie when it came out. But, my reps at the time, they were just like, well, sometimes that happens. Sometimes just because they didn't put enough money behind, they didn't give it enough chance in the theaters. There wasn't enough press. And, that was back when every weekend, there was like another teen movie being opening, that it just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And also we did it it was done on the $3 million budget, which was definitely on the lower budget side of that genre of films. And I think it was a little too edgy. It had a rated R rating. And I just don't think the audience discovered it until it was like released on home video or DVD or streaming. And then now people are obsessed with it. And Rebecca was saying like her teenage daughter that's all her friends want to watch is Jawbreaker.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love that.
I can believe that.
And it's really rewarding now because now it's finally getting Darren, especially for Darren, who wrote and directed it and had such a vision for it. And there's so much, like the dialogue is so heightened. There's so many fantastic quotable lines that really make you think. Just to finally have him receive the praise that should have been there when it came out. It just was like a little ahead of its time.
I actually fully agree with that. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the style of the movie, the fashion, the way the fashion was iconic.
Yes.
And do I remember correctly, I was watching some behind the scenes footage a couple years ago. Did you have to cut your hair for the role? Because Foxy had.
It was I was getting married to my first husband. I've had two husbands. Okay. Well, I'm on the second husband. Okay. So Darren was like, we kind of want you to cut your hair. And I said, oh, I have a wedding coming up. And I was like, okay, I'll agree to cut it to like my collarbone,
Yeah.
like a choppy collarbone cut was what I agreed to. We're in the hair and makeup trailer, and the Alex, who was doing the haircut, is a famous hair guy, and he literally just grabbed my hair and he chopped it up by the hair, and I was like, and Rose was in there, and Rose was like, "No, honey, no, this is right, like, and it was so right for Marcy, it just was
Yeah.
not right for my life."
Or
Yeah.
Julie, the
This
person.
was-
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this was before extensions were readily available. So it wasn't like I could just throw some extensions back in once the movie was over and I'd be fine. It was, no, I mean, he shaved the back of my neck down here. Like that's how short it was in the
Oh.
back. Yeah, in that very first scene, I'm crying in the car because like we killed the girl. And I remember just reaching and touching the back of my neck. I just started crying. How am I going to go home and explain this?
You really suffered for your work for that one.
I did, but you know what? That haircut looked so good on film.
Oh, it
Like,
does.
so good.
So great. It
Does
looks
not-
amazing.
But I'm not, well, I'm better with hair now than I was back then. Back then, it didn't work for me. I grew it out right away.
What was it like working with Rose on Jawbreaker? Because she had to deliver some really big lines in a way that was funny, evil, entertaining, and Foxy was her sidekick. It was, you guys had beautiful chemistry. What was that entire process with Rose like?
I mean, it was, listen, she was a big star to me.
Yeah.
Both Rose and Rebecca were like the famous ones in the movie, and then there was me and Judy, you know, and I mean, I think it was Judy's second project.
Yeah, I feel like that's
Oh,
the
really?
first
Judy
thing I
was
saw
like
her in.
fresh
Yeah.
out of theater school, and
Yeah.
I mean, I had been working, but I wasn't like, and I was a working actress, not a known actress, but it was like, it was all Rose and Rebecca, and Rose can be very intimidating. Just her presence is intimidating. I mean, first of all, she's stunningly beautiful. And like, I remember her telling me things like, "Oh, I never eat in public because I don't want to be paparazzi'd with food in my mouth." And I thought to myself, I am always like, I'm always shoving food in my mouth. Like, I shouldn't do that. Like, I didn't know that, like, as an actress, you're not supposed to eat in public.
And that line was also in the movie. I love that.
So, and then the way I played Marcy, it wasn't just that she was like her right-hand man. It was Marcy was so insecure that she took everything that Courtney said and like tried to, you know, there's that scene in the lunchroom where she talks about, ooh, oil. And I'm like touching my face, like, do I have oil on my face? You know, it was like,
Yeah.
a lot of that came from like, a lot of that came from my own, like, feelings with Rose because she was so glamorous and she had so like she would look like a movie star, you know, like with her jet black hair and the pale skin, and she would show up with a big floppy hat or an umbrella, and I'm like, are we supposed to almost like, you know, like, oh, am I supposed to be doing that? I don't do that.
Like I'm underdressed.
So I'd show up to set in like, you know, I'd show up in the hair and makeup trailer in like pajamas, basically. We were working really long hours. And she'd be like, she'd roll in like a really pretty dress. And I'm like, are we supposed to get dressed up to come to work? know that. Like she was so glamorous to me.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned her looking so gorgeous. We started this by telling you that you have like great hair. I mean,
iconic hair.
And tell everyone what you told us when I told you your hair looked so good.
Oh, thanks. I've actually become quite the pro with the hair tools. I really have. I have every size curling iron known to man.
It's funny. I would have thought your hair was curly because they love doing the like.
Normally I wave it. I have like this special 3-barrel iron that gives it that beachy wave, but now it's straight because I'm too lazy in the summer to do anything with it. So now I'm just wearing it straight.
Yeah, that was the thing. I was waiting for you to say that. Oh, I'm too lazy to do it, and it just happens to look this good, like on a
I know.
off day.
Hashtag woke up like this.
Yeah. I mean, my hair does look really good, slept in and worked out in. Like,
Yeah, bed hair I feel is always so good.
and also after I work out and once kind of the sweat starts to dissipate a little bit, it gives my hair such nice texture. I have really fine straight hair. So that kind of like the texture in it and like the day old with like a little bit of sweat buildup. Oh, my hair looks fantastic. One time for an audition, I forget what it was for, but I remember the character was a drug addict. And I went 4 days without washing my hair just for the audition. Right? And and I was like going to spin class and like, so it was I was trying to get it to look really stringy and like,
Yeah.
gross. And everybody kept going, your hair looks really good. And I'm like, stop it. I'm trying to look like a drug addict. I'm trying to get it to look really, really bad.
Julie, did you ever watch this? I promise it's gonna be relevant. 30 Rock.
A little bit, not a lot.
That just reminds me of when like Tina Fey's character is interacting with like the gorgeous secretary. She's like, "Do I look okay?" And she's like, "That's exactly how you look." And then later, one of the guys yells at her. And she's like, "Did he talk to me like I'm ugly?" Like it's like the joke is that she always looks good even when she's in a rush. And like they're always like, "Oh man, she looks great," and it's like she looks gorgeous. And I'll be like, I just like this is like a regular outfit. So I love hearing that. What have like I guess we're starting. So we started Angel season 3. We went through Buffy, and then we just started Angel. And all I can think of when we're watching, the last episode we recorded for is when Darla shows up with the big pregnant belly. And I kept thinking, like, was that a huge pain in the ass? Like when you had the vampire makeup on and the pregnancy belly, and you're like moving around a whole lot, like.
I mean, I asked them if they could make me supermodel pregnant, and they were like, no, we're gonna, like, I looked hideously pregnant. Like, that thing was so big. So that very first scene where I'm in the bar, it's like Rita's return and she's in the bar. David Greenwalt was directing the episode, and I walked onto set and he looked I'm in that red tank top with the huge belly, and he's just like, I don't know how we're going to shoot this. I don't know how to I don't know how to do what they want. I don't know how to shoot this. Because he had me sitting, he wanted me at a low table with chairs. And I said, I go, can I put my 2 cents in for directing it? And he goes, sure. He goes, because I'm at a loss. And I said, I need to be at the bar. And I'm having the scene with the bartender across the bar. And I do all of that. And then I turn on the bar stool and then I walk the belly walks past camera.
Yeah.
It's like the belly. And he was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. And that's how we got it.
It is a good reveal.
It is such an iconic reveal. Wait, what did you say in it? Life is full of surprises, and then you turn around and you got the belly, and the belly's leading the scene. Yes. I remember gasping. I was on the phone with a friend, and we both gasped at the same time.
And when we shot, oh God, I'm going to reveal too much. I partook in smoking cigarettes. During those years. And don't do it, kids, don't do it. But I would be standing I'd be in the pregnancy belly, and I'd be outside, like on the lot. And I had to get a sign that said, this is a fake belly. I'm not really pregnant, because people would come up and yell at me.
They see this pregnant mom smoking cigarettes, drinking some wine. Like,
welcome to Hollywood, kids.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it was fun. The one belly, the belly that I was wearing was basically, it's like a pillow, so it wasn't heavy at all. But that scene where you guys haven't gotten there yet.
Well, no, we do spoilers, and I've watched it a million times already. So
okay, same. When they're giving me an ultrasound, and it's in a couple episodes from where you guys are at, they made this fake prosthetic belly, and that thing was disgusting. It had veins, and it was like, and literally they didn't attach it to me, because at the scene I was just laying down, and So it was just laying, it just felt gross. It was just, and I was like, that's like one of the ugliest bellies I've ever seen because they put veins in it and like it was just, it was so, it again, not supermodel pregnant.
Well, super
Mm.
vampire pregnant instead.
Super vampire pregnant. It
Yeah.
was really gross.
I'm curious when you. Oh, I'm sorry. Ian,
No, go
for cutting
ahead.
you off. I'm curious when you got word that Darla was going to be coming back for season 3 and that she was going to be pregnant. Did you know the full extent of the story? Were you like, wait a minute, how is she pregnant? Oh my gosh, you're killing me off again. What were some of your thoughts when you got word on season 3?
So, this is a kind of a long-winded story here. So, I had a little bit of like a contract renegotiation issue happen during season 2 because I was just a recurring character, and I was working a lot and not getting paid, basically. And that's when you're a young actor, that's part of the struggle. But there came a point where I was like, pilot season is coming. I want to be available for pilot season. Can you please finish off my storyline before pilot season starts? And this was back when we had a pilot season, which was January to March. And they had promised that, but then all of a sudden they wanted me to come back in February. And that's right in the heart of pilot season. So they had to pay to take me off the market, basically, because I was like, I'm going to miss out on possibly getting getting a lead role on the show, and because that's what every actor wants. So they had to pay. I have very good reps, and they had to pay a lot of money to get me to come back, and they weren't happy about it. And so I made the joke though, because they needed me back because to try to turn an Angel back into Angelus, and like they needed that scene. Mm-hmm. The sex scene. And I made a joke on set because I was like, I was told I would not be coming back ever.
Okay.
So I made a joke on set saying, wouldn't it be so funny if Rita got pregnant? And everyone was like, that's not possible. Like vampires can't get pregnant. Like that's not possible. And then you cut to, they started back up in July. For season 3, and I had done pilot season, and I did a pilot. It didn't get picked up, but then I was signed on to do a mini series with Steven Spielberg was producing called Taken, and I had signed on to do that. And a week before they started filming for Angel, we got the call saying, "Well, we want her to come back now," and and we want to shoot, and I was not available because I signed on to do another show, and they were like, "What do you mean she's not available?" Like, but I wasn't under contract with them, right. So it got really, that season 3 got really complicated because it was also during 9/11, and I was filming in Vancouver for Taken, and the original idea was I'd fly up to Vancouver on Sundays, film Monday, Tuesdays, and if they needed me Wednesday mornings, then fly down here to LA and then shoot Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, have Saturday off, and then go back there, right? That was so they could keep their schedule. But then 9/11 happened, and there were no flights across the border. And so basically Vancouver was in first position, so they had to keep me there.
Wow.
So it really kind of fucked over, it really kind of fucked over Angel. So I think at that point they were like, well, we got to kill her off, like, which was fine. And I knew Tim Minear really wanted to kill Darla. He always talked about, like during season 2, he was obsessed. He's like, I want to be the one that kills Darla. and it's going to be epic. I want it to be like fun. Like I want to kill her because you're such a great character. And it's like, I just want to be the one that kills you. and so I think just because I started working a lot, and because I was never under contract, it just became really difficult to book me on the show. So they had to eventually write Rita off, or not Rita, Darla. Sorry. They had to write Darla off. And so I knew it was going to happen in season 3. I didn't know how it was going to happen. but I got a package delivered to me on set while I was filming up in Vancouver, and it was the script. And it had a really beautiful handwritten note from both Joss and Tim. And they're like, we hope you love this as much as we do. And I sat down and I read it and I started crying because I was like, this is Darla's redemption. Like, finally. Because I will say this too, when you're playing a villain like Darla was, a lot of people hated me. There was a lot of Darla hatred happening. And they were also hating me. Like on the posting boards. And even in like, there was a review, I think, of season 2 that came out in the USA Today, and the TV critic ripped me to shreds.
You?
Yeah.
No.
Ripped me to shreds as an actor and everything. And I was really upset about it because I was like, I'm not even a series regular. Right. like why? Like, there's so many other people. There's so like that ripped me to shreds. And I was really upset about it. And Joss was like, listen, don't worry about it. You know, because I was just like this.
Right.
But anyway, so I felt like it was such a beautiful moment. And the fact that they sent me one of the first drafts of the script to be like, this is what we're thinking. And we want you to be involved in this. And it was really, I was like, yes, this is it. This is best ending for her.
I rewatched that episode last night to prep for our interview because, I've seen all of them, but I was like, oh, let me rewatch this one. And I still fucking cried. Like, it still hit me. You are so good as Darla. Our last recording, me and the other folks that were on for the episode, we were talking about how you do a thing that feels impossible where, like, I feel bad for this serial killer. And, like, Darla's had a rough life, and she has, and like, but also she's evil, but also I don't want her to die. And I like wanted her to get, I mean, maybe not everything she wanted, but it's like, I wanted her to have something stable because she did get shit on a lot when she was a human. And, you do such a good job with like humanizing this person so that she's enjoyable to watch on screen. Darla's a character I definitely didn't appreciate as a teen watching, but she feels like a more adult character that as an adult watching, I'm like, this is really good. Like, you do the thing you do as Darla, which I haven't seen I haven't seen all your roles, so maybe you have, but like a thing that I really like that I noticed, like, there's things I've noticed going through it for the podcast that I didn't notice before, but like you do a thing with Darla where like, when she needs to get her way, she'll do her baby whisper voice. But then when she's bossing around like Drusilla and Spike and Angelus, that's where she uses like her top voice. And that's where she's like, no, don't fuck around.
Yeah. That was just, I don't know. Darla is probably the most manipulative character I've ever played. And I never tried to play her as evil. I always say she was misunderstood. Listen, it took her a long time to make a partner, and she picked Angel for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, she could have picked anybody, but she stalked him and hunted him down, and she turned him for a reason. She's very particular about who she wants to spend her time in her life with. And when he rejects her, when he gets the soul and he becomes disgusting, she's like the jilted ex-wife who's like, if I can't have you, nobody can.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I just took it from a place of like obsessive love, really. I just approached it from a place of love. Like he was also her son.
Yeah.
You sire, like it's your son, your lover, your like, it's all the, and then, the betrayal when he makes Drusilla. It's like, what do you mean you need, like, I thought I was enough.
Yeah.
Why do you need another plaything? I'm your plaything. So it's all those power dynamics that were so interesting. And, I do have to say the writing was just top notch.
The thing I always say about Buffy and Angel, both shows, is that like, neither would have worked if it wasn't A+ on both sides, writing and acting. Like,
I agree.
The dialogue might not have worked with lesser actors. And with bad writing, it might not have come across, even though all the actors were great. Like, and I feel like it was a like rare thing where both sides were working at like top tier. And for me, that's why the show, 25 years later, we're still talking about the show. And, like as a kid, I didn't know anyone who really watched those shows. So it's like kind of cool that as an adult, I can be like, oh, people want to talk about it with me. And, I can talk to folks like you. Like, there aren't a lot of shows that have that like full staying power, right?
Yeah, and I think too that Joss did a really the Joss and the other writers on both shows. I've worked I've done other genre TV series, and some have failed.
Mhm.
And I honestly believe the reason they failed is because when you are constructing a world that is not real, like there really aren't vampires. I mean, maybe, but we don't know, right? So when you're constructing the Hellmouth and the world of Buffy, there are certain rules that you cannot break, because otherwise the audience won't believe you. But then maybe a couple seasons in, you break that rule, but there's a huge payoff as to why you break the rule. I have been on other shows and movies where the rules just become willy-nilly, and it's not. It's like it's like, and they're like, the audience won't notice, or the audience won't care. And the one of the fantastic things that they did on Buffy and Angel was they didn't dumb it down for the audience. They actually thought the audience was really smart.
Yeah. They wrote up to the audience.
Right. Versus like dumbing it down and then trying to get away with breaking rules just to do like a set piece or like you know what I mean? And I've had this conversation with in other shows or movies too that I've been in where I've said the reason why Buffy Angel worked was because you don't break the rules just because you have a great idea for a fun episode or the network wants to give you you actually have to. It actually has to make sense. Yeah, because you're going to lose your audience. They're going to think you're an asshole. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And I think you're right, especially like, I mean, Dayspring and I are huge nerds. And so like a lot of nerdy genre stuff, sometimes you can feel that where like, they're like, the audience won't care. And it's like, we
do.
Yeah.
We're noticing every rule. I mean, if you want to sell your audience on this world, your world building has to be tight. Yeah. And your audience will respect that. Yeah. But I wanted to pull on the thread we talking about something paying off, because one of the things in Angel and Buffy that I think was so great, a wonderful payoff moment, was when you, Angel, and Drusilla and Spike all came together for like that crossover and the power dynamics, as you were saying. I'm curious, what was it like that day on set, having all four of you together for the first time and working?
I mean, it was like a dream come true, really. Because like the four of us
felt it. The audience felt it. It was a dream come true. You're absolutely right.
It was, I mean, the four of us have such great chemistry. And the scenes where the four of us were together was just magic for us. It was just like a real treat, it was like, oh my God, we're going to have so much fun. And I think it helped because like David and I had really great chemistry. Juliet and Jane had great chemistry. And then Juliet and David had great chemistry. And then I had
you and Juliet too.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
so there was Juliet. All this, like, it was just a giant love fest. Like we were just so excited. And that big Boxer Rebellion where that power walk scene.
Oh, chef's kiss.
That night, I mean, that was an all-night shoot. We were out somewhere in the valley somewhere and in the middle of nowhere. And the set design, everything was just perfect. And the wardrobe and the wigs and there were chickens running around and there was fire and there was we didn't care. It was like 3 a.m. We were like, this is an incredible, like you know, they're not doing this on Dawson's Creek.
Right.
No, they
Right?
were not.
They're
No.
not. So we like, what a great job we have. Like
Yeah.
what great roles. We get to explore all these different time periods and walk into these magical sets that are built that are just like, you know, and we get to have fun and like just feed off of each other, not literally, but you know, feed off of each other's energy and just work together. And you know, I think the four of us all have a similar approach where everything's about the work when we're on set. So
Yeah.
is we'll do whatever it takes to make the scene work. And we also had that trust within each other as well. Like I know I had that trust with David, like especially when we had some really heartbreaking scenes
Yeah.
together. And I always knew he'd be there to catch me. Like he would be there to catch me. You know, when they yell cut and they're like, okay, we're moving on. And I'm on the floor and I'm still bawling my eyes out. He's there holding my hand saying, it's okay. It's okay. Let's
Oh,
get you up
that's
off the
nice.
floor. Let's, you know, like, and that's what you want in a scene partner. Cause it's, you know, I also knew I could go to those dark places with him and he would go with me. You know what I mean? He would take,
Yeah.
he would match me. And it's the same with Juliet and James. It was like we could do all of that and they would match and we would all match each other's energy. So
Yeah.
those
I
were
mean,
magical moments when we were together.
I mean, that's another thing that with those shows, I always feel like that can be hit or miss, right? I mean, I'm sure you've had scene partners where you're like, this person's all right. And like you can feel the chemistry with all of y'all like on screen. You feel that like these are actors that are really good at their job. And you know, it's like you mentioned, it's actually the first time the four of you are all together. And it's, you don't even think it like when we got to that episode for the podcast, I was like, oh, right. The four of them weren't together a lot. We like heard about the four of them were together a lot, but we didn't really see it. And it's definitely cool to see. And, you know, I love the way you played Darla on her deathbed when the master goes to visit and she
yes.
sees this monster and she's just like, whatever, like, I don't care. Like, you're gonna kill me or what? Because like I'm dying and I don't give a shit. Like I loved
See,
that.
when we shot that scene, because I said that it was Tim Minear again. I said to Tim, I'm like, what am I dying from? And he's like, syphilis. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, can I have some like sores on my face?
Yeah.
So like, you know, because all I could think about was remember Michelle Pfeiffer in Witches of Eastwick, and she had this, and like I was like, that's acting. I'm like, I want sores on my face. So he was like, really? And I was like, I do. I want sores. So he was like, okay. So I went back to David DeLeon, and I said, Tim said I could have sores on my mouth because I'm dying of syphilis. And David was like, all right. So he does this, makes them look like, oh. And I look in the mirror and then I'm like, oh my God, it looks awful. Like, what was I thinking? But then it worked. And like, you know, I mean, Darla had a really, really tough life. If you think about women in that time period, I mean, there weren't many options for you. And if you weren't born into wealth, there weren't many options. So she just, you know, she did what she had to do to survive. But, you know, the survival rates were really slim because of syphilis.
Right.
So, but on set, I'd walk around going like, does anybody want to kiss me?
You have the most, I was reading like trivia or whatever, and you have the most on-screen deaths of any character in the Buffyverse.
Yes.
Which I love. And inversely, you are in Saw, and you are one of the few people that survives a Saw movie, which I kind of love.
Yeah, I survived a Saw movie. I survived a Rambo movie because the women usually die in those.
Julie, my 75-year-old father, was very excited that I was interviewing someone from Rambo.
Yes.
He was like, oh yeah, I know her. She's in Rambo. I was like, she is, yes.
Saw was a very difficult movie for me to film because, and I wanted the challenge. Like I took on the role knowing that those movies scare the bejesus
Are
out.
you not a horror movie gal?
Not a Saw movie, gal, because
That's different. It's like gore
there's-
fest.
but they're psychologically damaging as well. And that puppet is not. I mean, that I can't. I'm getting upset thinking about the puppet. Okay. So I thought, wow, what a challenge to be cast in this. And I'm in the traps. And like, can I actually do it? And I go, maybe it'll ruin the scare. And then they could watch the rest of the franchise, right? That's what my thought process behind it. I was terrified the whole time. I had nightmares every night. And the crew would laugh because they'd be like, this always happens. One newbie comes in and you start having nightmares. It's the one movie I've done that I've never watched.
Okay.
Wow.
Can't watch it. I threw up on set when we went to film where I put my hand in the.
That part is really gross, and I'm a horror movie person, and
Yeah.
I like literally I threw up. I was so grossed out by the whole thing. And that's by the way, kudos to their set design because their sets are absolutely incredible. And I remember my first day on set, I was in the first trap where I had to run and get the key, and we had the
collars or whatever.
Collars, and then if we could get slammed back into get our head chopped off.
Oh.
And I remember, I insisted on wearing super high heels because I'm short. And I remember my first day on set, we went to do the first take and I panicked because I said to the director, I said, what happens if I don't get there first? Like, I don't want to die. And he's like, we cut. This is. And I was like, oh my God. I was just like, I was terrified.
It's funny because I had assumed that because I've seen the first like two a few times. The rest of them I've seen like once. And in my memory, I thought your character like passed out and dies. I thought it's like she dies from blood loss. And then I was like, oh, I was like reading up about it. I was like, oh, she passes out, but she's not dead.
Yeah.
Have you ever been like, because they do sometimes bring back survivors. Has there ever been?
I don't know. I mean, there was talk about me being in another one, but then the schedule didn't work out. And so then I don't know what happened. But for me, it was a fun experience to conquer my fear of the movie. But I still can't watch those movies.
You're like, but I'm all set on doing that again.
They are so scary.
They're scary. They're tough to get through. I'm a horror person as well, and I can't get through a Saw movie. It's tough for me.
And so when years prior to me being cast in it, I was doing George of the Jungle 2 for Disney straight to video. And our producer on that, one of our producers, Greg Hoffman, we were filming in Australia and he was talking to me and he told me that his next movie was this like horror film thing and he didn't know how it was going to turn out. And it was Saw. So, but then I think it was during the Saw 2, he died of a heart attack. He was a young guy. He had a massive heart attack and he died. So I felt like it was like Greg's way, like I'm kind of spiritual in that, I'm like, there's people up there that sometimes nudge you. I felt like it was Greg giving me a little like, hey, that's nice. Another reason why I wanted to do it.
That's nice. Yeah, no, that is really nice.
That's beautiful.
Since my mom passed like a year ago, and I'm not like I waver back and forth with that stuff, but like we have this like picture of her that falls a lot, and I'm always like, I feel like that is her being annoyed with me or something. Like
that's your mom.
Yeah,
that's mom. I have to agree with you though. I was very atheist until I experienced some losses, and now I'm agnostic because there's certain things that happen that you can't quantify out there. There's some little spiritual nudges, as you said, that how can you deny that there isn't something above this world?
Yeah. I call it woo-woo. I'm into woo-woo.
Oh, we love woo-woo
like
too. Wait, can I ask about Desperate Housewives?
Please.
because I was a major fan. And then when Susan went to go work at the school and there was Robin, I mean, what was it like joining Desperate Housewives? I mean, it was so big. I don't know if people who are listening now know how big it was back in like the mid 2000s. I mean, we're talking Super Bowl level viewers.
Yeah.
And there were so many stories written about the on-set stuff, everything. You're joining season 6. What was that like? Kind of stepping in.
The backstory on how I joined the show was right after I literally the day after the end of season 4 of Dexter, without giving anything away. Literally the day after, my agents called and they said, we got an offer for you to join Desperate Housewives. They would like you to come on. And I was like, what? Because I was such a huge fan of the show. I had seen every episode and was so impressed by the women on the show. Particularly to see a show like that with, was it 5 female leads that were all given such strong, fun storylines, and they were funny and heartbreaking and I just was like, oh my God. And then he's like, no, my agent was like, I was like, what's the role? I thought, and he goes, well, they want you to play a stripper. And I was like, but I'm not in my 20s. No, they know that. And they said, and you're going to have an affair with one of the ladies. And I was like, okay, cool. So then I got to talk to Mark Cherry, and Mark was like, he told me it was going to be Dana Delaney, but he said, please don't say it, because they were still getting approval on the storyline. Okay. And he's like, don't tell the rest of the cast. Don't we're just going to keep it quiet. And I was like, okay. And the way I got the show was because I had done a pilot with Dana years before that. And I guess when they were throwing names around and they asked her, she was like, oh, yeah, I'd like to make out with Julie. So, okay. So that's how I got it. So I was so excited to be there. And I remember my first day on set, my first day on Wisteria Lane, I literally got out of the van and I was running up and down Wisteria Lane going like, oh my God, that's Susan's house. Oh, just freaking out. And I remember Terry Hatcher just standing there and looking at me and just being like, and I was like, oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm not cool. I'm so sorry. I'm so uncool. And she's like, no, she's like, we don't get many people that come on the show of your caliber that are excited to be here. And I'm like, you have no idea. You have no idea how excited I am to be here. And there were moments when I'd be filming scenes with the whole entire cast, I would literally forget that I was filming and think I was watching them on my TV. And then of course, forget that I had lines and then just be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was just watching you guys all on my TV. It was like I was in my living room and you were all because I'm so used to watching you all on my TV. I can't believe I'm here.
I always get a kick out of that when anyone who's a friend that's a writer for TV or an actor who then gets cast in something that they are a fan of. I feel like that must be so cool.
It is. I mean, listen, everyone's a fan of something or someone. So for me, being able to work with those women and whose work I had admired for so long, they were kind of Desperate Housewives is really the genre I would really love to do, where it's a mix of comedy and drama. And, you have fun, heightened, ridiculous moments, but then you also have the heartbreaking moments. For me as an actor, that's really what I would love to do. And I don't get to do it very often. So it was so exciting to be there and to work with these women who I just admired and just was like, I can't believe I'm here. and then to play a stripper with a heart of gold. I mean,
that's a rom-com right there.
It is.
And I've had people ask me how do you, because some parts you've been sexualized in, playing Robin, the stripper with a heart of gold, and you're wearing skimpy. And I'm like, how old was I? Was in my late 30s. I was I show off my body. Yeah. Yeah,
does.
I didn't feel sexualized. I felt like empowered, you know?
Julie, I feel like, yeah, if it's like, I look good, so
Well, it's like,
why not?
listen, I work out, I work very hard, you know?
Oh,
I work very hard to stay fit just because I really do it for the mental health benefits.
yeah.
But the physical benefits are really nice. And the older I get, you know, the harder it is. But I see nothing wrong with, you know, we have such a weird viewpoint on nudity in the United States.
We really do. And it's
We
gotten
do.
like pruder, kind of.
Yeah, and but yet we're fine with violence.
Yeah.
And I always think it should be reversed.
Fair enough.
You know, I remember like on Dexter, when the season 3 premiere, the kid who played Cody, my son, his dad brought him to the premiere to watch it. And his dad said to me, he goes, "Oh, don't worry, I covered his eyes when you were naked." And I said, "And yet you let him watch Dexter kill people." I don't really like, I you know, I was really confused by that because I was like, I don't really think there's anything wrong with the female body,
Right.
Yeah.
naked
Right.
female body. Like,
I mean, not
and
to
then
be
he looked at me and he was like, "I guess you're kind of right."
I mean, and not to be that person, but it's like how, like, you know, people are mad. It's like, oh, a gay couple kissed. And it's like, why is that a problem? But like,
Yeah, why is that the contentious thing here?
Yes. It's that we have this kind of backwards view. It's like we can show violence.
Yeah.
And it's okay, but
Yeah, do anything like,
anything else.
yeah. It is weird because I feel like it was a little bit, it feels, I mean, maybe, I don't know what it is, but yeah, I do feel like it's getting more prude, like the cultural shift is to more prude nowadays. And it's
Yeah.
like you said, there's like nothing wrong with nudity or whatever. And like, sure, if someone's not comfortable, then, you know, that's okay too. But
Yeah.
it's weird to be like, no, none at all. We can't have anything sexual. And it's like, but that's okay. Like,
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with love. Love is
yeah,
love.
yeah.
What's
Like,
wrong with that?
who cares?
Oh, but
Yeah.
like, let's have, you know, hey, let's have Saw.
Right. Yeah.
Let's see people's head get decapitated.
Yeah.
On the subject of Dexter, we are getting a prequel series, and your Buffy co-star, Sarah Michelle Gellar, is signed on. What are your thoughts
Yes.
on that? Any advice you would have for Sarah?
I don't need to give her any advice. She's a pro. I need advice from her. No, she's such a pro. She's incredible. I think it's fantastic. I'm very excited for the prequel. Obviously I'm not involved in it, but I think it's very, very exciting. And you know, Dexter, they've had a habit of casting people that I've worked with a lot. They cast Colin Hanks, they cast Ray Stevenson, Sean Patrick Flannery, James Martinez is in the prequel. I played his love interest on Love Victor. Now Sarah. So I just feel like they're just looking at who I've worked, like all the good people I've worked with, and
They're also looking at your IMDb to be
Yeah.
like,
so it's nice. Like I'm very excited, and I can't wait to see it.
Did like with stuff like that, did you know that they were doing one, or was it like when they announced you were like, oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know anything. So it's not like they call you up and they say, "Oh, hey, we just want to give you a heads up. This is happening."
I was thinking like, oh, but what if they use you for archive footage? But like, it's a prequel, so I guess they
The
wouldn't.
prequel.
Yeah.
And Rita and Dexter's relationship played out on screen.
Yeah.
Like from
Yeah.
the beginning to the end. That was their whole relationship. So, you
Yeah,
know, it
that
was funny, like when people's perceptions are very funny because even when like they announced that Sarah was joining the prequel, my phone was blowing up with congratulations from people. And I'm like, but you know, cut back to a couple years ago when they announced that they were going to do the final season of Dexter. Everybody was wishing me congratulations. And I'm like,
I'm dead.
You're like,
Not, and I did a TikTok of it, a funny TikTok, and it went viral because it was just kind of like I love that you all are excited, but I don't know what you're congratulating me
Yeah.
for. I'm not involved in the show. I'm just, not a writer or producer. I died. Sorry, spoiler alert. But still have to say it 20 years later. But yeah, so it's funny. But the same thing happened when they announced Sarah. Like people are like, "Oh my God, this is so exciting for you!" And I was like,
You're like, yeah,
you're
sure.
like, no.
"Exciting for Sarah."
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that the day after the season 4 finale for Dexter, where you died, I feel like everyone was talking about it. Everyone was shocked that your character died.
I didn't even watch it, and I remember hearing people talk about
Yeah,
like I didn't watch it
came
while
to
it
Dexter
aired.
late.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
came to it late, and everyone talked about it on the subway. I remember I was taking the train in. People were like, "Did you watch Dexter? Oh my God, I can't believe they killed Rita."
Yeah.
It was literally an iconic moment.
Yeah.
So it was I might get emotional. Sorry, because it's so nice to hear that. For me, I didn't know it was going to happen, and I had only found out a couple days before
Oh.
we shot. That was the last scene of the season, and they only told me a couple days before, and I was really devastated by it. But I remember feeling like, what if nobody cares? Because again, Rita was the nemesis to Dexter. So there was a lot of people that hated Rita because I got in the way of him killing.
Yeah.
So I was really concerned that nobody was going to care. And I remember Showtime hosted this big finale party with fans, and they wanted me to be there, and I agreed to go. But I left when they started airing that episode because I was like, I don't want to be here. I can't handle that. Like, I can't handle, because like, what if they cheer?
Right.
Right. Like, I'm like, it's just too much for me. And I was still feeling very emotional that I had failed Rita somehow, that maybe had I stood up for her more during like season 3, when I thought that her storyline got a little ridiculous, maybe like had I stood up and like gone to the writers and inspired them to write something, like maybe this wouldn't have happened. I don't know. But I was having I was mourning her as well. So I left and I went home. And then the next night, a bunch of my friends came over and we walked to a restaurant to go out to dinner. And we walked into the restaurant. And this never happens in LA. Never happens, because nobody cares about anybody in LA, right? Never happens. We walk in and I'm like talking to my friends, and all of a sudden we notice that the whole like things have gotten really quiet, and people are like looking, and all of a sudden people started coming over and hugging me and crying. And they were shocked that I was still alive. And for weeks and weeks and weeks, like I was walking down the street in West Hollywood, and all of a sudden this car pulls over like onto the sidewalk, and this guy jumps out, and I literally think I'm going to be attacked.
Oh, God.
And he just starts crying, and he's like, "You're alive. Oh my God, you're alive." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." Part of like my mourning process became having to comfort fans and just be like, it's okay. They didn't kill me for reals.
It was just a character. No, but it
you
was
deserve
a moment.
that love, though. You do. You deserve that.
It was a wonderful performance. And again, I came to Dexter late, but I knew your character was going to die because everyone the next day was just in shock. And I wasn't involved in any of the fan politics or anything like that. I mean, people like the mainstream audience was genuinely shocked, and they couldn't believe the writers went there. And what a wonderful performance you had given.
I mean, I couldn't believe the writers went there. I mean, when they told me, I was like, listen, I'm the one that allows the audience to love Dexter. Do you not understand?
Yeah.
They fall in love with Dexter through Rita's eyes. Like I'm like, you have 7 guys standing around doing nothing. Like, I was throwing other people under the bus. I'm like, kill one of them. Like, I just had Rita just had a baby. Like, this is like, so yeah, it was, I always say nobody was more shocked and devastated than me. And then, there were rumors going around that I wanted off the show. That was a complete lie. I've always been very honest in interviews about just how shocking it was to me and how it was really devastating. Like, I really felt that I did something because listen, season 1 and 2, I had really great storylines. Season 3, I got a little ridiculous, but that's the nature of episodic television. I'd been in the business for years at that point. I understood that. Like, not every season is going to be a great season. And sometimes you have to take a step back and let other actors have a great season, right? Have their great season. So that's kind of what I thought what it was. And I was like, well, I'm doing like 5 movies during hiatus, so that's fine. Like, this is great. And I was just shocked. In the end, I feel like maybe had I fought for her more during season 3 and really, really tried to inspire the writers to come up with like a stronger storyline for her, then maybe this wouldn't have happened in season 4.
That's fair. That's fair. And I don't know, you speak so lovingly. I feel like any Dexter super fan would probably love that, because I always love hearing actors and writers talk about their love for the thing they're doing, right? And it's okay if sometimes you don't have the love, right? That's normal too, but it's always nice as a fan to hear someone speak so lovingly about their work. Daysbringer and I, for both our podcasts, we covered the X-Men animated series, the new one that came out. And all those actors spoke so lovingly about the material and like had nothing but love for the writers and for their characters. And that is, I gotta say, as someone who's like clearly a fan of pop culture, I have a podcast about it. That is very like satisfying to hear. Like you spoke with such love about all of your characters today, and that is not as common as you would think. But it's
because
really
you didn't ask me about Locust the 8th plague. Okay. No. I have some stinkers in there where you're like on set and you're like, oh God, I just got to get through this. And
Listen,
hopefully no one will ever see it. Like, there are stinkers.
We're both in media, and I have had some media jobs where I'm like, I have to write this. Are you kidding me? But it's gosh, this is what I'm doing. I will write the stupid like piece on this thing that I truly do not care about, because that's, I feel like that's the nature of any of those jobs, right? Where it's like, well, you're going to have some things you really fucking hate doing, but then you got some things you love doing. So like,
sometimes you need a paycheck.
Yeah. I mean, I feel very, very lucky that I have been a part of shows like Buffy and Angel and Dexter, and like a movie like Jawbreaker, where years and years later, they are still in the lexicon of the world and of what people talk about. And, and so I don't know, there's not many actors that, I mean, I feel like I have a lot. Like, I feel like
to your own horn. Yes, you are correct.
Those 3 are quite large, to
massive.
create 3 characters that are still, 20 some years later, people talk about.
Yeah.
I kind of feel, I'm like, all right, maybe I am a little bit of a badass.
You are 100%.
And before we let you go, I have one more question for you.
Yes.
When did you realize you had such a big gay fan base?
Yes.
I mean,
because you saying people in West Hollywood were stopping you, I'm like, well, that's not surprising at all.
No.
I know, West Hollywood is like, I go there. I'm really popular.
They're like, slay, Darla.
I would say, first of all, I think when I started doing conventions early on with Buffy, and I think shows like Buffy, and I think vampires in particular, because that's one of the things that I kind of wanted to reveal with playing Darla, was that for vampires, it's not about gender. It's about just feeding and lust and like, so to kind of, so I think vampires have always really talked to people in the gay community as being able to identify with them, that there's no gender with vampires. They just, you know what I mean? So, so I think early on during those conventions, but then also, you know, once I played a lesbian on Desperate Housewives, it was really fantastic for me, you know. Wouldn't happen today now because, you know, now they need, you need to see more representation of gay people working. This is, you know what I mean? But I feel, I mean, I think we were the first lesbian kiss on ABC.
Oh, really?
I think so too. Yeah.
So,
oh, I didn't know that.
mm-hmm.
That's cool.
It was a really big deal.
You know, the history of that is so weird. I was hired by this like video company that no longer exists anymore right before the pandemic to like write about the history of like LGBTQ like representation just on screen. And the history of like, there was like some weird like lawyer show that I don't even remember that was like the first kiss ever on TV. And it was like a nothing show. And like, then there wasn't another one till like Willow and Tara on Buffy. And it's, the history of that is so weird. And I don't think folks realize how like recent, right? Like,
and, you know, I think for a network like ABC, which is more like family oriented, like they're more of a family brand. Like it was a big deal for them to do that.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
You know,
was it before Cam and Mitch on A Modern Family?
I think so.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it was. That was incredible.
It was like maybe right before, or maybe right at the same time. Yeah. But I think it was the first time it was like a lesbian kiss, like two women. So
that's cool to be a part of that. That's cool.
Yeah, it was nice, and I've always been a fan of the gay community because I grew up as a competitive figure skater.
Yeah. Does it get more savage than that?
Yeah.
When I worked at BuzzFeed, we had Johnny Weir and who was the other figure skater? Yes, they had them both in the office, and they were like very big personalities. Johnny Weir is like so like such a big personality, and it was like really fun.
I think, you know, for me, because like I grew up in that world, and it was never weird to me because you just grew, like I grew up in it. I started skating at the age of 3, so it was never anything that, you know, and that's why I think like exposure, so representation, all of that's so important because like when you're a kid, it doesn't, you're like, oh, okay, you know, he has 2 dads,
right?
Cool, you know, like it's only old people that have issues.
Yeah.
You know, Julie, it's funny that you say that because my nephew, he's 10 now, but when he was younger, a couple of years ago, when I was dating my last ex, I remember it was the first time my nephew was meeting him. And I think he was still in diapers. I think my mom was like changing him, and we walked in to visit. And my nephew, he was like old enough that he talked, and he said, "Who's that?" And my mom was like, "Oh, that's Uncle Ian's boyfriend." He went, "Oh, hi, Uncle Ian's boyfriend." And I said to my dad, he said that easier than your mom did. And he was like, all right.
Yeah.
And like, you're right. To him, it's just like, oh yeah, Uncle, like it doesn't like phase him. It's just like,
it doesn't phase children. And it shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because love is love.
But you're right. It's the adults. It's the old people that have the like, Julie, thank you so much for chatting with us. You are
thank you guys.
An absolute delight, and I really appreciate you spending time with us. Let everyone know where they can find you online.
You can find me on Instagram at Julie Benz MFT, which stands for My Favorite Things, not Marriage Family Therapist. However, if you have relationship questions, feel free to ask them. You know, I have been married twice.
Great. So after this, I'll email you some couples counseling questions.
Like I'm an expert in the field. So yeah, but no, everybody gets confused what the MFT stands for. I have a Twitter, whatever, but I have that account, but I just have it. I don't use it.
Yeah.
And there is a Facebook fan page. Again, I don't know how to tell you how to get there unless you go to my Instagram account, and then you can find it through there. So yeah,
Cool.
I stopped doing the TikTok. I'm an old lady. I stopped doing the TikTok. You know why? I
Why?
don't remember my password.
No. Someone get this woman a password reset.
Listen, yeah.
It's okay. It's a time suck.
It is. It is. I've never been a TikToker or like TikTok person, but the times I've gone on, it's like 2 hours later.
It's this weird thing where you just start and then like you can't stop. And during the pandemic, I started a TikTok account and I had some fun with it. And first of all, it takes a lot of time to come up with an idea, and then a lot of time to shoot the idea, and then a lot of time to edit the idea. But then also it takes a lot of time to find the inspiration for the idea. So I just was like, I can't do this. I just can't do it. So
I'm actually like jealous of the people that do have like these like really fun, good ideas like every other day that they post videos. I'm like, how are they coming up with this so quickly? Like
I said, I'm not that creative. I'm pretty boring. I mean, I make seed crackers in my free time. Okay?
Yum.
Like I cook a lot. Like I'm just boring. Like I'm just like,
so next time in LA, I'll get some seed crackers.
they're really good. I'm
Well, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.